Latest breaking news today. Taiwan sharply criticized China on Saturday after Beijing marked the founding of the People's Republic of China with the largest ever incursion by the Chinese Air Force into the island's air defense zone. Chinese claim Taiwan has complained for a year or more of repeated missions by China's Air Force near the democratically governed island, often in the southwestern part of its air defense zone close to the Taiwan-controlled Plaza Islands. Taiwanese fighters scrambled against 38 Chinese aircraft in 2 waves on Friday, the Taiwan Defense Ministry said. It said Taiwan sent combat aircraft to warn away the Chinese aircraft, while missile systems were deployed to monitor them. The first wave of incursions comprised 18 J-16 and 4 Su-30 fighter jets plus 2 nuclear-capable H-6 bombers and an anti-submarine aircraft, while the second had 10 J-16s, 2 H-6s and an early warning aircraft, the ministry said. The first batch of Chinese aircraft all flew in an area close to the Plaza Islands, with the 2 bombers flying closest to the atoll, according to a map issued by the ministry. The second group flew down into the Bashi Channel that separates Taiwan from the Philippines, a key waterway that links the Pacific with the disputed South China Sea. China has yet to comment. It has previously said such flights were to protect the country's sovereignty and aimed at collusion between Taiwan and the United States, the island's most important international backer. The previous largest incursion happened in June, involving 28 Chinese Air Force aircraft. China's latest mission came less than a day after its government launched an attack on Taiwan's foreign minister, evoking the words of revolutionary leader Mao Zedong to denounce him as a shrilling fly for his efforts to promote Taiwan internationally. China has stepped up military and political pressure to try and force Taiwan to accept Chinese sovereignty. Taiwan says it is an independent country and will defend its freedom and democracy. Worldwide deaths related to COVID-19 surpassed 5 million on Friday, according to a Reuters tally, as the Delta variant causes a surge in fatalities, mainly among the unvaccinated. More than half of the world has yet to receive at least 1 dose of a COVID-19 vaccine, according to our World in Data. It took almost over a year for the COVID-19 death toll to hit 2.5 million, while the next 2.5 million deaths were recorded in 236 days, according to a Reuters analysis. More than half of all global deaths reported on a 7-day average were in the United States, Russia, Brazil, Mexico, and India. Globally, an average of 8,000 deaths were reported daily over the last week, accounting for 5 deaths every minute. An experimental antiviral pill developed by Merck & Co. could have the chances of dying or being hospitalized for those most at risk of contracting severe COVID-19, according to data that experts hailed as a potential breakthrough in how the virus is treated. If it gets authorization, molnupiravir, which is designed to introduce errors into the genetic code of the virus, would be the first oral antiviral medication for COVID-19. Merck and partner Ridgeback Biotherapeutics said they plan to seek United States emergency use authorization for the pill as soon as possible and to make regulatory applications worldwide. Current treatment options include Gilead Sciences' infused antiviral remdesivir and generic steroid dexamethasone, both of which are generally only given once a patient has already been hospitalized. Existing treatments are cumbersome and logistically challenging to administer. A simple oral pill would be the opposite of that, Adelia added. The results from the Phase 3 trial, which sent Merck shares up more than 9%, were so strong that the study is being stopped early at the recommendation of outside monitors. Shares of COVID-19 vaccine makers Moderna were off more than 10%, while Pfizer was down less than 1%. Jefferies analyst Michael Yee said investors believe people will be less afraid of COVID and less inclined to get vaccines if there is a simple pill that can treat COVID. Pfizer and Swiss drug maker Roche Holding AG are also racing to develop an easy-to-administer antiviral pill for COVID-19. For now, only antibody cocktails that have to be given intravenously are approved for non-hospitalized patients. White House COVID-19 response coordinator Jeff Zients said on Friday that molnupiravir is a potential additional tool to protect people from the worst outcomes of COVID, but added that vaccination remains far and away our best tool against COVID-19. A planned interim analysis of 775 patients in Merck's study looked at hospitalizations or deaths among people at risk for severe disease. It found that 7.3% of those given molnupiravir twice a day for 5 days were hospitalized and none had died by 29 days after treatment. That compared with a hospitalization rate of 14.1% for placebo patients. There were also 8 deaths in the placebo group. Scientists welcome the potential new treatment to help prevent serious illness from the virus, which has killed almost 5 million people around the world, 700,000 of them in the United States. The study enrolled patients with laboratory-confirmed mild to moderate COVID-19, who had symptoms for no more than 5 days. All patients had at least one risk factor associated with poor disease outcome, such as obesity or older age. Drugs in the same class as molnupiravir have been linked to birth defects in animal studies. Merck has said similar studies of molnupiravir, for longer and at higher doses than used in humans, indicate that the drug does not affect mammalian DNA. Merck said viral sequencing done so far shows molnupiravir is effective against all variants of the coronavirus, including the highly transmissible Delta, which has driven the recent worldwide surge in hospitalizations and deaths. It said rates of adverse events were similar for both molnupiravir and placebo patients, but did not give details. Merck has said data shows molnupiravir is not capable of inducing genetic changes in human cells, but men enrolled in its trials had to abstain from heterosexual intercourse or agree to use contraception. Women of childbearing age in the study could be pregnant and also had to use birth control. The United States drug maker said it expects to produce 10 million courses of the treatment by the end of 2021. The company has a United States government contract to supply 1.7 million courses of molnupiravir at a price of $700 per course. Davis said Merck has similar agreements with other governments, and is in talks with more. Merck said it plans a tiered pricing approach based on country income criteria. The United States government has the option to purchase up to an additional 3.5 million treatment courses if needed, a United States health official told Reuters. The official asked to remain anonymous because they were not authorized to comment publicly on the contract. Merck has also agreed to license the drug to several India-based generic drug makers, which would be able to supply the treatment to low and middle-income countries. Molnupiravir is also being studied in a Phase 3 trial for preventing infection in people exposed to the coronavirus. Merck officials said it is unclear how long the FDA review will take, although Dean Li, head of Merck's research labs, said, they are going to try to work with alacrity on this. In a rare visit to the United States Capitol, President Joe Biden tried on Friday to end a fight between the moderate and progressive wings of his Democratic Party that threatened to torpedo his domestic agenda. Faced with a moderate faction that wanted an immediate vote on a $1 trillion infrastructure bill and a progressive arm that wanted to wait until there was agreement on a sweeping $3.5 trillion bill to bolster social spending and fight climate change, Biden sought to split the difference. The former senator told his caucus during a 40-minute meeting that they could delay a vote on the smaller bill and sharply scale back the larger one to around $2 trillion. But his message that there was no rush belied the fact that Congress faces multiple approaching critical deadlines. A source familiar with Biden's remarks at the meeting said he told lawmakers, even a smaller bill can make historic investments. The delay comes at a bad time for Congress, which has a lot of work ahead in the next few weeks. The Treasury Department estimates that it has until about October 18 for the government's $28.4 trillion borrowing limit to be raised by Congress or risk a debt default with potentially catastrophic economic consequences. Then on December 3, the nation faces the risk of a government shutdown that could be politically damaging for Democrats. By early next year, attention will focus on the midterm elections in November 2022, where history favors Republicans' chances of recapturing a majority in Congress. House Democrats confirmed late Friday there would be no vote on the infrastructure bill that day. The most vocal opponents to the proposed $3.5 trillion size of the social and climate bill are moderate Senate Republicans Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, either of whom has the ability to prevent a bill from passing. With the Senate divided 50-50 between the parties, Democrats hold the majority by virtue of Vice President Kamala Harris' tie-breaking votes. They aim to pass the larger bill without Republican support using a maneuver called budgetary reconciliation. House progressives acknowledged after the meeting with Biden that the $3.5 trillion number would need to be scaled back, though Biden agreed to their demand of passing the two bills in lockstep. Progressives fear that passing the smaller bill first would doom the larger one's chances. But Progressive Representative Jamie Raskin suggested there were ways to cut the bill's price tag while preserving many of the programs Democrats want to include. The sweeping bill was to provide funding for universal preschool for all Americans, affordable housing and making homes more energy efficient. House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi had previously committed to moderates to vote on the infrastructure bill this week. She repeated those commitments on Thursday and Friday, but in the end her team canceled the vote. In a letter to Democratic colleagues late on Friday, Pelosi said great progress had been made in negotiations on the social spending and climate bill, but more time is needed. She said the infrastructure legislation will pass once there is an agreement on the larger bill. Democratic Representative Josh Gottheimer, a leader of the moderates, said in a statement it was deeply regrettable that Pelosi broke her commitment to hold a vote on the infrastructure bill. He said a small far-left faction of the House blocked the vote. House Republicans are unlikely to help pass the infrastructure bill, eager to deny Biden a policy victory ahead of the midterms. Even as they wrangle over Biden's agenda, Democrats face the fast-approaching debt ceiling deadline. Republicans want no part of the debt limit increase, saying it is Democrats' problem since they control Congress and the White House. Democrats note that about $5 trillion of the nation's debt is the result of tax cuts and spending passed during Republican Donald Trump's presidency. The House approved a bill late on Wednesday suspending the debt limit through December 2022. The Senate could vote on it as early as next week, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said, but Republicans are expected to block it again as they have twice before. Something unexpected is happening at United States military bases hosting Afghan evacuees. Many hundreds of them are simply leaving before receiving United States resettlement services, two sources familiar with the data told Reuters. The number of independent departures, which top 700 and could be higher, has not been previously reported. But the phenomenon is raising alarms among immigration advocates concerned about the risk to Afghans who give up on what is now an open-ended, complex and completely voluntary resettlement process. In the speed and chaos of the United States withdrawal from Afghanistan in August following 20 years of war, many evacuees were brought into the United States under a temporary status of humanitarian parole. Once transferred to United States military bases, refugee resettlement groups and United States officials have been trying to connect people with services for a smooth transition to the United States. In a statement, a United States Department of Homeland Security, DHS, spokesperson declined to comment on the figures provided to Reuters by sources but said people who had left the bases generally had ties to the United States, like family members of friends, and resources to support themselves. The spokesperson said that in addition, at the outset of the operation many of those evacuated were United States citizens, permanent residents or had approved special immigrant visas so were able to depart quickly. But leaving early could cost other Afghan evacuees critical benefits, like expedited work permits, and create a slew of legal problems down the road, given the complexities of the United States immigration system. The benefits the evacuees have received have been more limited, so far, than what's offered to refugees. But that appears set to change following legislation passed on Thursday by Congress, despite opposition from Republicans, that would give Afghan evacuees the more extensive assistance usually provided to refugees. The new legislation says Afghan asylum applications should be expedited. But those who leave United States bases early might not get all the legal orientation they need to start their applications. Immigration experts say Afghans who leave the bases are not breaking United States laws and military officials have no legal authority to hold law-abiding Afghans against their will at any of the 8 locations hosting 53,000 Afghans who fled the Taliban on United States evacuation flights. The scale of the independent departures vary from base to base, according to the sources, more than 300 alone at Fort Bliss in Texas, a figure that is likely to alarm both advocates and critics of the massive resettlement operation. However, United States officials stress that all of the Afghans leaving United States bases had already undergone security screening before arriving in the United States. The risk of the independent departures is to the Afghans themselves. Reuters viewed a document, entitled Departee Information, that is meant to warn Afghans considering leaving before completing their resettlement. It reminds them that, on base, they can get their immigration paperwork processed and even cash to help pay for travel to their destination in the United States. Afghans leaving United States bases can be a touchy issue in some parts of the country, particularly given media coverage of security incidents at Fort McCoy, in Wisconsin, and Fort Bliss. But General Glenn Van Hertzk, head of Northern Command, pushed back on the idea that criminality was a problem on the United States bases. He told Pentagon reporters on Thursday that the numbers of incidents involving robbery and theft were substantially lower than in the general United States population, with only 8 cases in 6 weeks. Asked what was the limiting factor in getting Afghans processed for resettlement, Van Hertzk said it was not vaccinations against measles or the coronavirus or security checks. Instead, it was efforts by United States officials to ensure each of the Afghan guests have a great place to land and have assurances for where they're going to relocate to.
Don't go yet. We are not done yet. Let me invite you to the world of Scci. Remember to attend our Monday, website creation class. Wednesday, our market outlook on trading and investment networking. And Friday, our CEO Mega Networking and Business Presentation event. Lastly, let me share with you. Welcome to the world of Scci Digital TV. Watch and chat with friends on the latest news in Scci YouTube or Facebook channel. We showcase guest speaker seminar at 2 p.m. daily. Get to know our Scci official members at 11 a.m. and 11 p.m. daily. Wait no more, subscribe to Scci YouTube and Facebook Digital TV channel now. If you are a business owner, start selling your products through Scci platforms.
Interested in stock and forex market movement? Want to hear from experts where the market is heading? Every night at 9 p.m. Bringing you market outlook for the week. Available in Scci Live Digital TV channel in YouTube and Facebook. Singapore first integrated social and business platform is here. Chat online marketplace. Everyone is chatting in chat. Connect with new friends around the world. Sharing opportunities and moments. Know what happened around the world. No more prank calls or targeted advertisements. Your personal data privacy is protected against for marketing. Download Chat Online Marketplace now. Singapore first integrated social and business platform. Available in Apple stores and Play Store. Need help to reach out to more customers? Want to increase your sales revenue? Singapore Chamber of Commerce and Industry can help you with your advertising needs through Facebook and Google marketing, YouTube and TikTok campaigns advertising, sales video production, live stream sales, website building and e-commerce advertising. Reach more customers and get more sales now. Make an appointment now through WhatsApp or click on the link below. Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison on Friday announced an 18-month ban on Australians travelling abroad will be lifted from next month, easing one of the toughest COVID-19 restrictions imposed globally. Reopening the international border for citizens and permanent residents will be linked to the establishment of home quarantine in Australia's 8 states and territories, Morrison said, meaning that some parts of the country will reopen sooner than others. The first phase of the plan will focus on citizens and permanent residents being allowed to leave Australia, with further changes expected to permit foreign travellers to enter the country. Morrison slammed the international border shut in March 2020. Since then, only a limited number of people have been granted a permit to leave the country for critical business or humanitarian reasons. Citizens and permanent residents have been allowed to return from abroad, subject to quota limits and a mandatory 14-day quarantine period in a hotel at their own expense. There have also been a few high-profile exceptions granted for entry for business purposes, including Hollywood actors to film movies and TV shows. Morrison said he expects the first home quarantine systems to be up and running in November, but the timetable will be set by individual states and territories. He has previously said it wants all state and international borders reopened when the national vaccination rate for people aged over 16 reaches 80%, expected by the end of next month. Under the plan announced on Friday, Australians who are fully vaccinated will be able to travel abroad and complete a 7-day quarantine at home on their return. People who are not vaccinated will be required to undertake 14 days of quarantine at a hotel when they return. Morrison said his government was working towards quarantine-free travel with countries such as New Zealand when safe to do so. An Australian government source said plans were being discussed to allow foreign visitors to enter the country, but it was not possible to yet state a timetable. Australia's strict border closure has been credited with keeping both fatalities and infections relatively low. It has recorded just over 107,000 COVID-19 cases and about 1,300 deaths since the start of the pandemic. The country on Friday reported 2,084 new COVID-19 cases, the bulk of which were detected in New South Wales and Victoria states. The results marked a small decline in case numbers from those reported one day earlier, but authorities warned against complacency. Australia will also expand its list of authorized COVID-19 vaccines, allowing thousands of citizens and permanent residents still abroad to return via the home quarantine system, Morrison said. Australia currently only recognizes vaccines produced by Pfizer, Moderna and AstraZeneca. The source said China's Sinovac and Covishield, a version of AstraZeneca's vaccine produced by the Serum Institute of India, would be added to the list. While thousands of Haitians were detained, deported or expelled from a camp on Mexico's frontier with Texas last week, many others traveled west to the border city of Tijuana, hoping to avoid a crackdown aimed at stemming the rising tide of migrants. Evading detection, paying thousands of dollars, and shunning popular routes, those coming to Tijuana have drawn on the help of fellow Haitians who reached the doorstep of the United States 5 years ago during another spike in migration. Contact with established Haitians in the city, including those in local business, has smoothed the pathway north, according to more than 24 travelers who spoke to Reuters. Since July, that network has also helped some Haitians to cross into the United States, they said. Mexico last week worked with the United States to clear an impromptu camp of several thousand Haitians that sprang up between Ciudad Acuna, Mexico, and Del Rio, Texas. Many had come from Chile or Brazil to reach the United States. Gerby's family is among hundreds who have been trickling into the city opposite San Diego this month, according to new arrivals and operators of migrant shelters. His journey mirrors that of predecessors who first fled a major 2010 earthquake in Haiti and chronic poverty for South America. Many then moved north en masse for the United States in 2016 as the Brazilian economy deteriorated. A number of Haitians came with children born in Chile, voicing the belief that would make it easier for them to get into the United States. Chilean citizens can enter the United States for up to 90 days with a visa waiver. Settling in various parts of Tijuana, some Haitians work in restaurants and factories, while others have businesses ranging from cell phone shops to car washes, gardening, plumbing and interior decoration, local advertising and residents say. Most are wary of going public about their achievements lest it cause them problems with migration authorities or attract the attention of organized crime. Diverson Pierre, an industrial painter, said he had arrived in Tijuana in 2017 intending to go to the United States. Wilner Meatless, a Haitian who heads advocacy group the Citizens Committee in Defense of Naturalized Persons and Afro-Mexicans, said previous arrivals had shown the latest influx of Haitians how to avoid official raids and make progress. New arrival Gerby also wants to reach the United States, but plans first to work in Mexico to replenish his exhausted savings, having spent thousands of dollars getting north. Fearful of being deported home, or sent back to southern Mexico, or even to Guatemala, Haitian migrants said they traveled in small groups to avoid detection. Sometimes that even meant getting into private cars or taxis so they could dodge authorities by avoiding the main roads. Migrants sometimes had to pay up to 500 pesos, $25, for stretches that would usually cost 80 to 100 pesos, Petty noted. Still, the additional costs made for safer travel, he said. Other Haitians were able to travel through Mexico like regular tourists, despite lacking the requisite papers. A number showed Reuters early morning bus tickets they had bought to get north from the eastern town of Poza Rica. In contrast to the arrival of Haitians to Tijuana in 2016, many arrived with the aid of coyotes or guides, who took them straight to boarding houses and apartments, making them less conspicuous, the heads of 5 migrant shelters told Reuters. That has also made it harder to estimate how many Haitians are in Tijuana, local officials say. The biggest Mexican city on the United States border, Tijuana has long been a major thoroughfare for migrant traffic, and there is strong sympathy for the Haitian migrants in some quarters. Footage broadcast on television and social media showed Mexican officials at times using heavy-handed methods to beat back migrants, prompting sharp protests from rights groups and even criticism from President Andrés Manuel López Obrador. Baja California, the state where Tijuana lies, has traditionally been one of the fastest growing in Mexico, and local labor minister Luis Alguerri said the Haitians are welcome. Democratic leaders of the United States House of Representatives delayed a planned vote on a $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill that had been set for Thursday, bowing to party progressives who had demanded action on a larger social policy bill first. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and President Joe Biden have been scrambling to patch up differences between progressive lawmakers, who want a $3.5 trillion social spending package to go along with the infrastructure plan, and moderates wanting a smaller bill. The move gave Biden and Democratic leaders more time to try to assemble the votes to gain support for a key part of his agenda. The House approved the measure in a bipartisan 254 to 175 vote, hours after it passed the Senate by 65 to 35. Negotiations on the other legislation stretched into the evening. In a statement to her Democratic colleagues, Pelosi called it a productive and crucial day and said discussions continued. But as the hours stretched on, it became clear no deal was apparent. Some progressive Democrats have vowed to vote against the bill to invest in the nation's roads, bridges and other infrastructure, angry that Democrats have not yet reached agreement on a multi-trillion-dollar companion bill with funding for social services and to address climate change. Faced with increasingly stiff odds of passing their $3.5 trillion social spending proposal, Biden and his aides are trying to find out what narrower proposal could unite an ideologically fractured Democratic caucus of lawmakers, according to people familiar with the matter. Lawmakers on the party's left flank have said they will not vote for the infrastructure. Democratic Representative Ilhan Omar, a leader of House progressives, told reporters, "Nothing has changed with our caucus members. We don't have the votes to pass infrastructure." Moderate Democratic Senator Manchin has proposed a spending package of about $1.5 trillion. Another Democratic moderate, Senator Kyrsten Sinema, declined to say whether she agreed with Manchin's proposal. She has met with Biden multiple times to discuss the bill. With razor-thin majorities in Congress, Democrats cannot afford to lose many votes if they want to pass their agenda. They are unlikely to win much support from House Republicans eager to take back the majority in the 2022 congressional elections. The stopgap spending bill approved in the Senate also provides aid for communities hard hit by hurricanes, wildfires and other natural disasters. Money to help Afghan refugees is included as well. In yet another high-stakes battle, congressional Democrats and Republicans continued brawling over giving the Treasury Department additional borrowing authority beyond the current statutory limit of $28.4 trillion. A historic United States debt default could occur around October 18, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has estimated, if Congress fails to act. Republicans want no part of the debt limit increase, saying it is Democrats' problem since they control Congress and the White House. Democrats note that about $5 trillion of the nation's debt is the result of tax cuts and spending passed during Republican Donald Trump's presidency. The House approved a bill late on Wednesday suspending the debt limit through December 2022. The Senate could vote on it as early as next week, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said, but Republicans are expected to block it again. Yellen said on Thursday it would be a catastrophe if Congress does not raise the debt ceiling. Read more. The uncertainty is starting to filter into financial markets, although few believe the nation will ultimately default. The looming debt crisis is rattling Americans on both sides of the political spectrum, according to an Ipsos national opinion poll conducted for Reuters on Tuesday and Wednesday. It showed that 65% of adults, including 8 in 10 Democrats and 5 in 10 Republicans, are very or somewhat concerned that Congress will fail to reach a debt deal in time. The poll also found that 30% think congressional Republicans deserve the most blame if there's a government shutdown, while 21% would blame Democrats in Congress and 16% would blame Biden. North Korea fired a newly developed anti-aircraft missile on Thursday, state media KCNA reported on Friday, the latest in its recent series of weapons tests amid deadlocked denuclearization talks with the United States. It was North Korea's second known weapons test this week after launching a previously unseen hypersonic missile on Tuesday. It has also fired ballistic missiles, and a cruise missile with potential nuclear capabilities, in recent weeks. The tests highlighted how North Korea has been steadily developing increasingly sophisticated weapons, raising the stakes for efforts to press it to give up its nuclear and missile programs in return for United States sanctions relief. The Academy of Defense Science, a military weapons developer, said the test was aimed at confirming the practical functionality of the missile's launcher, radar, comprehensive battle command vehicle and combat performance, according to the official KCNA news agency. It added the missile has new key technologies such as twin rudder control and double impulse flight engine. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un appears to have not attended the test, which was instead overseen by Pak Jong-chan, a member of the ruling Workers' Party's powerful Politburo and Central Committee. Pyongyang has in recent weeks argued that its weapons tests are intended to boost self-defense capabilities just as others do, accusing the United States and South Korea of double standards and hostile policy toward it. On Wednesday, Kim said he has no reasons to attack South Korea and is willing to reopen severed inter-Korean hotlines next month. But it slammed United States President Joe Biden's administration for using more cunning ways and methods in pursuing hostile policy while proposing dialogue. Analysts say the North's carrot and stick approach is aimed at securing international recognition as a nuclear weapons state and drive a wedge between the two allies, with an eye on South Korean President Moon Jae-in's desire for a diplomatic legacy before his term ends. United States have grown to 83,000 tons in the first 8 months of 2021, 9 times the amount in the same period a year ago, according to Chinese customs data, and are set to be worth more than $1 billion this year. Australia also fell behind the United States this year as the top exporter of grain-fed beef to China. Deteriorating relations between Beijing and Canberra have hurt supplies from Australia. 5 of its largest factories were suspended by Beijing last year for reasons such as poor labeling and contamination with a banned substance. Though other plants are still allowed to ship to China, importers say they face long delays. Beef imports from Australia in the first 8 months fell to 96,000 tons, half of what they were in the same period last year, China customs data shows. That compares with about 1 week for meat from other origins. China's General Administration of Customs did not respond to a request for comment. Sino-Australian ties have been strained since 2018 and worsened last year when Australia called for an independent investigation into the origins of the novel coronavirus, prompting trade reprisals from China. Grass-fed beef, a premium product in other markets, typically goes to cheaper channels in China, such as mass-market restaurants and supermarkets. Last year imports accounted for 40% of China's beef consumption, or about 2 million tons. Those supplies are dominated by low-cost grass-fed producers Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay. Demand from mass-market consumers is slowing amid a weaker economy. China's mid to high-end market, where grain-fed rules, continues to grow, however, as consumers trade up, eat better, said Pan Chenjin, senior analyst at Rabobank. China's middle class spent $7.3 trillion in 2020, more than any other countries, according to a report by United States research group Brookings, and is still growing, with young people accounting for more spending than in other countries. New York chain Wolfgang's Steakhouse, which has 2 restaurants in Beijing, opened another in the southern city of Shenzhen this year and has plans for a 4th in Hangzhou. The restaurant flies in chilled United States beef before aging it. Its 800 grams ribeyes cost $150 apiece. Even as China's beef demand has surged in recent years, driven by a growing middle class, politics have reshuffled the country's top importers. In last year's Phase 1 trade deal between Beijing and Washington, China agreed that United States-approved processing plants could access its market without Chinese inspections. The number of facilities allowed to ship to China has jumped to more than 500. Trex Corp, a United States meat exporter owned by Greater Omaha Packing Company, is buying meat from other packers to ship to China as demand climbs, said Henry Davis, chief executive of Greater Omaha. In China, USMF has doubled the number of training events teaching local chefs how best to cut and slice, said Joel Haggard, Senior Vice President for the Asia Pacific. United States beef that meets China's import standards is in tight supply and the European Union is competing to buy the same meat, said Omaha's Davis. And though Australia's beef exporters have turned to Japan and South Korea, a well-established reputation means customers in China could quickly return if things change. Asia's manufacturing activity was lackluster in September as signs of slowing Chinese growth and factory shutdowns caused by the coronavirus pandemic weighed on the region's economies, surveys showed on Friday. Factory activity in September shrank in Malaysia and Vietnam, and grew in Japan at the slowest rate in 7 months, as chip shortages and supply disruptions added to the woes of a region still struggling to shake off the pandemic's hit. China's waning economic momentum dealt a fresh blow, with the official Purchasing Managers' Index, PMI, on Thursday showing the country's factory activity unexpectedly shrank in September due to wider curbs on electricity use. While the private Caixin/market manufacturing PMI fared better than expected after slumping in August, growing signs of weakness in the world's second-largest economy is clouding the outlook for neighboring Asian countries. While coronavirus curbs on economic activity may be gradually lifted, the slow pace at which this will happen means Southeast Asian economies will stagnate for the rest of this year, said Makoto Saito, an economist at NLI Research Institute. The final Ojibun Bank Japan manufacturing PMI slipped to 51.5 in September from 52.7 in the previous month, marking its slowest pace of expansion since February. Supply chain disruption continued to dampen activity and demand, said Yuzuma Body, economist at IHS Markit, of Japan's PMI survey. South Korea's PMI for September rose to 52.4 from 51.2 in August, staying above the 50-mark threshold that indicates expansion in activity for a 12th straight month. But continued supply chain disruptions dented business optimism for manufacturers. Taiwan's PMI eased to 54.7 in September from 58.5 in August, while Vietnam saw the index unchanged from August at 40.2. Once seen as a driver of global growth, Asia's emerging economies are lagging advanced economies in recovering from the pandemic's pain as delays in vaccine rollouts and a spike in Delta variant cases hurt consumption and factory production.
Don't go yet. We are not done yet. Let me invite you to the world of Scci. Remember to attend our Monday website creation class, Wednesday our market outlook on trading and investment networking, and Friday, our CEO mega networking and business presentation event. Lastly, let me share with you. Welcome to the world of Scci Digital TV. Watch and chat with friends on the latest news in Scci YouTube or Facebook channel. We showcase guest speaker seminar at 2 p.m. daily. Get to know our Scci official members at 11 a.m. and 11 p.m. daily. Wait no more, subscribe to Scci YouTube and Facebook digital TV channel now. If you are a business owner, start selling your products through Scci platforms.
Singapore's first integrated social and business platform is here. Chat Online Marketplace. Everyone is chatting in chat. Connect with new friends around the world. Sharing opportunities and moments. Know what happened around the world. No more prank calls or targeted advertisements. Your personal data privacy is protected against remarketing. Download Chat Online Marketplace now. Singapore's first integrated social and business platform. Available in Apple stores and Play Store. Interested in stock and forex market movement? Want to hear from experts where the market is heading? Every night at 9 p.m. Bringing you market outlook for the week. Available in SCCI Live digital TV channel in YouTube and Facebook. Need help to reach out to more customers? Want to increase your sales revenue? Singapore Chamber of Commerce and Industry can help you with your advertising needs through Facebook and Google marketing, YouTube and TikTok campaigns advertising, sales video production, live stream sales, website building and e-commerce advertising. Reach more customers and get more sales now. Make an appointment now through WhatsApp or click on the link below. President Joe Biden's agenda was at risk of being derailed by divisions among his own Democrats, as moderates voiced anger on Wednesday at the idea of delaying a $1 trillion infrastructure bill ahead of a critical vote to avert a government shutdown. The White House said talks over twin bills that would revitalize the nation's roads and airports and fund social programs and climate change measures were at a precarious point as moderates and progressives disagreed over the scope of some $4 trillion in spending. Congress, which Democrats control by a razor-thin margin, is due to vote on a bipartisan resolution to fund federal operations through early December before funding expires at midnight on Thursday. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has scheduled votes on the measure beginning on Thursday morning, leaving plenty of time for the House of Representatives to act. The House is also expected to vote on Thursday on a $1 trillion infrastructure bill already passed by the Senate with bipartisans, although some party leaders warn that vote could be delayed again, which would dismay moderates. Representative Stephanie Murphy, a moderate Democrat who backs the infrastructure bill, warned against defeat or delay of the legislation. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Schumer went to the White House on Wednesday afternoon to meet Biden, a former senator himself, who canceled a trip to Chicago to lead negotiations with Congress. A White House staffer met at the Capitol with moderate Democratic Senator Kyrsten Sinema, who has expressed deep concern over the size of Biden's plans and has the power to block them due to the Democrats' narrow control of the Senate. If the resolution to fund the government passes the Senate, the House could vote quickly to send the measure to Biden to sign into law, averting a partial government shutdown in the midst of a national health crisis. Biden's Democrats campaigned on a platform of responsible government after Republican Donald Trump's turbulent 4 years in office. Republican Senator John Cornyn expressed optimism on Wednesday. Democrats don't want to shut down the government. Republicans don't want to shut down the government. That will supply the result that we all expect, which is to keep the lights on, he told a news conference. Senate Democrats have tried to pass legislation that both funds the government and heads off a potentially catastrophic federal government default by raising the nation's $28.4 trillion debt ceiling. But they have been thwarted by Republicans who want Democrats to use a parliamentary maneuver to act alone on the debt limit issue. The government will hit the ceiling around October 18, an event that could cause a historic default with long-lasting economic fallout and implications for financial markets. Schumer has demanded bipartisan cooperation on the issue, arguing that it addresses debts racked up during both Democratic and Republican administrations. The House passed a bill on Wednesday suspending the limit through December 2022, by a mostly partisan vote. It now goes to the Senate, where it is expected to be blocked by Republicans again. Investment bank Goldman Sachs this month described the standoff as the riskiest debt limit deadline in a decade. Several senior Democrats have said the $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill, so-called because it is being drawn up under a budgetary procedure to avoid Senate rules requiring 60 votes out of 100 members for passage, will need to be scaled back to pass. Moderate Democratic Senator Joe Manchin said he believed it would take weeks to reach agreement. House Democrats urged Manchin and Sinema to say publicly what they want. China's factory activity unexpectedly shrank in September due to wider curbs on electricity use and elevated input prices, while services returned to expansion as COVID-19 outbreaks receded, offering some relief to the world's second biggest economy. The official Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index, PMI, was at 49.6 in September versus 50.1 in August. Data from the National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, showed on Thursday, slipping into contraction for the first time since February 2020. Analysts in a Reuters poll had expected the index to remain steady at 50.1, unchanged from the previous month. The 50-point mark separates growth from contraction. China's economy rapidly recovered from a pandemic-induced slump last year, but momentum has weakened in recent months, with its sprawling manufacturing sector hit by rising costs, production bottlenecks, and electricity rationing. Rising COVID-19 cases in tens of cities over the summer also disrupted the manufacturing and the services sectors, though the latter is starting to bounce back as the outbreaks receded. A sub-index for factory output contracted in September for the first time since February last year, dragged down by a pullback in high-energy consuming industries, such as plants that process metals and oil products. The gauge stood at 49.6 versus 50.1 a month earlier. The sudden contraction in factory activity will further weigh on an economy already hit by curbs on its property and tech sectors and facing many growth downgrades by private sector economists. Other economies in Asia are also grappling with production issues due to supply chain disruptions, with data on Thursday showing Japan's industrial output falling for a second straight month in August. The central bank last eased its requirements on how much cash banks should hold in mid-July, just before a surge in domestic COVID-19 cases. The People's Bank of China, PBOC, has left its benchmark lending rate for corporate and household loans unchanged for the 17th month in September. A shortage of coal, tougher emissions standards, and strong demand from manufacturers and industry pushed coal prices to record highs and triggered widespread curbs on electricity usage in at least 20 provinces and regions. Higher raw material prices, especially of metals and semiconductors, have also pressured profits of manufacturers. Earnings at China's industrial firms in August slowed for the sixth straight month. A sub-index for raw material costs rose to 63.5 in September from 61.3 a month earlier, while a gauge of new orders came in at 49.3 compared with 49.6 in August, shrinking for the second straight month. A sub-index for employment remained in contraction, at 47.8 versus 47.0 a month earlier. A separate private survey also released on Thursday that focuses on small and export-oriented businesses showed that factory activity in September neither expanded nor contracted. On a more sanguine note, the official non-manufacturing PMI in September was at 53.2, bouncing back from 47.5 in August, data from the NBS showed, as COVID-19 outbreaks receded after rising during the summer months. Last month, COVID-19 related restrictions drove services sector activity into sharp contraction for the first time since the height of the pandemic last year. The official September composite PMI, which includes both manufacturing and services activity, stood at 51.7 versus 48.9 in August. Melbourne's COVID-19 cases surged to record levels on Thursday, with officials blaming illegal home gatherings to watch a key sporting event for the spike as a hard lockdown to combat the spread of the Delta variant neared 2 months. Authorities in Victoria, home to Melbourne, estimated nearly a third of Thursday's 1,438 new infections could be traced back to home parties last weekend to watch the Australian Rules Football Grand Final on television. Officials admitted Thursday's numbers, a 50% jump to Wednesday's 950 cases, is a major setback in managing the flare-up, as they race to vaccinate the state's 5.5 million adult population. Half of the state's population above 16 have received their first dose, below the national average of 53%, as officials have the intervals between Pfizer shots in state-run vaccine hubs to 3 weeks after supplies rose. Australia's largest cities, Sydney and Melbourne, and the capital Canberra are in a weeks-long lockdown to combat a third wave of infections fueled by the fast-moving Delta variant. Authorities have ditched a COVID-0 strategy and are looking at higher vaccination as their exit strategy from lockdowns. A total of 941 new cases were reported in New South Wales on Thursday, the majority in state capital Sydney, while Queensland recorded 6 and the Australian Capital Territory 31 infections. The record cases in Victoria come as the federal government on Thursday decided to phase out its emergency financial support for businesses impacted by the lockdowns, in line with its plan to end support to virus-impacted employees. Read more. Federal Treasurer Josh Frydenberg said the temporary payments will stop once 80% of the adult population in states and territories becomes fully vaccinated. But Victoria's businesses will receive a fresh $2.27 billion Australian dollars, $1.65 billion, support from the federal government through the next 6 weeks, at which point the state should hit that dosage target, from around 50% now. The federal government decision to wind down support payments, shared equally between states and Canberra, will put pressure on virus-free states to keep their economies open and avoid lockdowns to fight future outbreaks. Prime Minister Scott Morrison has been pressing all states and territories to begin living with the virus once full inoculations reach 70% to 80%, but Queensland and Western Australia, largely COVID-free, flagged they may delay their reopening. Despite the latest Delta outbreaks, total cases in Australia stand at around 105,000 and deaths at 1,291, well below other comparable nations. 11 new deaths were recorded in the country. The death toll from a riot at one of Ecuador's largest prisons rose to 116, President Guillermo Lasso said on Wednesday, adding that he would send additional security forces and free up funds to avoid a repeat. Another 80 inmates were injured during the Tuesday night clashes at the Penitenciaria del Litoral in Guayas province, which has been the scene of bloody fights between gangs for control of the prison in recent months. It is unfortunate that criminal groups are attempting to convert prisons into a battleground for power disputes, Lasso told reporters in Guayaquil, Ecuador's largest city. I ask God to bless Ecuador and that we can avoid more loss of human life. Tuesday's clash was the most deadly act of violence ever reported in Ecuador's penitentiary system. Similar clashes took place in February and July 2021 in various prisons throughout the country. At least 79 people died in the February violence, and in July at least 22 lives were lost. Dozens of people arrived at the jail to seek information about relatives and demand accountability from officials responsible for the inmates' safety. The government bolstered military presence outside the facility. Lasso said the state would assist the families of dead and injured inmates. The South American country's prosecutor's office said earlier on Wednesday that 6 of the slain prisoners at Penitenciaria del Litoral had been decapitated. The Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, IACR, has previously condemned the violence, and Human Rights Watch urged Ecuador's government to fully investigate the prison violence and bring those responsible to justice. Lasso in August said the government would provide more funding for the overcrowded prison system to build new wards and install new equipment to improve security. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un said he is willing to restore severed inter-Korean hotlines next month, but accused the United States of proposing talks without changing its hostile policy to the country, state media KCNA reported on Thursday. Kim made the remarks at the reclusive country's rubber-stamp parliament, the Supreme People's Assembly, which gathered for a second day to discuss the government's political, economic and social agenda. North Korea this week test-fired a previously unseen hypersonic missile, joining a race for the advanced weapons system led by major military powers, and again demanded that Seoul and Washington scrap their double standards over weapons development. Kim expressed his willingness to reconnect inter-Korean hotlines starting from October, but criticized the South's delusion over what it calls military provocations from the North. North Korea severed the hotlines in early August in protest against joint South Korea-U.S. military drills, just days after reopening them for the first time in a year. The decision to reactivate the lines is to help realize the expectations and desire of the entire Korean nation for recovery and durable peace in cross-border relations, Kim said. South Korea's unification ministry responsible for inter-Korean affairs welcomed Kim's offer on the hotlines, but did not comment on his other remarks. Kim took a tougher tone toward Washington, accusing President Joe Biden's new administration of employing more cunning ways and methods in pursuing military threats while still offering talks. The Biden administration has said it reached out to Pyongyang to break an impasse over talks aimed at dismantling its nuclear and missile programs in return for United States sanctions relief. It has criticized North Korea's recent missile launches as destabilizing and threats. The United Nations Security Council will meet behind closed doors on Thursday over the North's latest test following requests from the United States, Britain, and France, diplomats said. Analysts say the North's carrot-and-stick approach is aimed at securing international recognition as a nuclear weapons state and driving a wedge between Seoul and Washington, taking advantage of South Korean President Moon Jae-in's desire for a diplomatic legacy before his term ends in May. Pyongyang was attempting to foster a more positive mood towards North Korea and Seoul ahead of the upcoming presidential election and pressed Moon to help shift U.S. attitudes, he said. Kim did not refer to the North's recent missile tests, but touted ultramodern weapons which are being developed at an extremely fast speed and capable of containing hostile forces. He also said that in order to formally end the 1950-53 Korean War, as suggested by Moon at the recent UN General Assembly, both Koreas should withdraw unfair and double-dealing attitude and hostile viewpoint and policies toward each other. Read more. KCNA separately reported that Kim Yo-jong, the leader's powerful sister, was named as a new member of the State Affairs Commission, a top governing body created in 2016 and chaired by Kim Jong-un, as part of a personnel reshuffle unveiled on the sidelines of the parliament meeting. Kim Yo-jong, 32, has risen rapidly since her brother took power in 2011, becoming a senior official at the ruling Workers' Party handling propaganda and ideological messaging in 2014. She has taken on a more diplomatic role, especially on inter-Korean affairs since she visited the South for the 2018 Winter Olympics. Shares of debt-laden China Evergrande Group swung wildly on Thursday as the company looked set to miss its second bond interest payment in a week, as an additional $180 million in coupon deadlines loom in the next month. The company's shares opened sharply higher, rising as much as 5.21% before reversing course to slump as much as 7.17%. Evergrande Property Services Group fell 4.2% before trimming losses to 0.6%, and China Evergrande New Energy Vehicle Group dived as much as 19.4%. It last traded down 8.6%. An offshore bondholder, who declined to be named because of the sensitivity of the matter, said his firm had received no information from Evergrande about the $47.5 million semi-annual bond interest payment on its 9.5% March 2024 dollar bond as of Thursday morning in Asia. The coupon payment was due September 29. It was not immediately clear whether the payment could still be made. With liabilities of $305 billion, Evergrande has sparked concerns its woes could spread through China's financial system and reverberate around the world, a worry that has eased with the Chinese central bank vowing to protect homebuyers. Once China's top-selling developer and now expected to be the subject of one of the largest ever restructurings in the country, Evergrande has been prioritizing domestic creditors over offshore bondholders. While its main unit, Honda Real Estate Group, announced a resolution of an onshore bond coupon payment on September 23 through private negotiations, Evergrande has been silent about its offshore payment obligations. Regardless of how the debt is restructured, Evergrande shareholders and investors in offshore, USD-denominated corporate bonds will suffer large losses, said Jing Shima, chief China strategist at BCA Research in a note. Evergrande, which has nearly $20 billion in offshore debt, also missed a $83.5 million coupon payment on another bond last Thursday. The September 23 and September 29 coupon payments have 30-day grace periods. The company faces deadlines on offshore coupon payments totaling $162.38 million and an onshore coupon payment of 121.8 million yuan, $18.84 million, by October 30. Vietnam's business hub Ho Chi Minh City will start relaxing coronavirus curbs from later on Thursday, allowing for the resumption of more business and social activities, city officials said at a news conference.
Don't go yet. We are not done yet. Let me invite you to the world of Scci. Remember to attend our Monday, website creation class. Wednesday, our market outlook on trading and investment networking. And Friday, our CEO Mega Networking and Business Presentation event. Lastly, let me share with you. Welcome to the world of Scci Digital TV. Watch and chat with friends on the latest news in Scci YouTube or Facebook channel. We showcase guest speaker seminar at 2 p.m. daily. Get to know our Scci official members at 11 a.m. and 11 p.m. daily. Wait no more, subscribe to Scci YouTube and Facebook Digital TV channel now. If you are a business owner, start selling your products through Scci platforms.
Singapore's first integrated social and business platform is here. Chat Online Marketplace. Everyone is chatting in chat. Connect with new friends around the world. Sharing opportunities and moments. Know what happened around the world. No more prank calls or targeted advertisements. Your personal data privacy is protected against for marketing. Download Chat Online Marketplace now. Singapore's first integrated social and business platform. Available in Apple stores and Play Store. Need help to reach out to more customers? Want to increase your sales revenue? Singapore Chamber of Commerce and Industry can help you with your advertising needs through Facebook and Google marketing, YouTube and TikTok campaigns advertising, sales video production, live stream sales, website building and e-commerce advertising. Reach more customers and get more sales now. Make an appointment now through WhatsApp or click on the link below. China Evergrande Group faces its next test in public markets with the deadline for a bond coupon payment to offshore investors on Wednesday, as the cash-strapped property developer scrambles to sell some of its assets. With liabilities of $305 billion, Evergrande has sparked concerns its problems could spread through China's financial system and reverberate around the world, a worry that has eased as damage has so far been concentrated in the property sector. Evergrande plans to sell a 9.99 billion yuan, $1.5 billion, stake it owns in Shengjing Bank Company Limited to a state-owned asset management company, the developer said on Wednesday in an exchange filing. Shengjing Bank, one of the main lenders to Evergrande, had demanded that all net proceeds from the disposal be applied to settle the financial liabilities of the developer due to the lender, it said. The move underscores how Evergrande, once China's top-selling developer and now expected to be one of the largest ever restructurings in the country, is prioritizing domestic creditors over offshore bondholders. The company missed a payment deadline on a dollar bond last week, a day after its main property business in China said it had privately negotiated with onshore bondholders to settle a separate coupon payment on a yuan-denominated bond. The company is due on Wednesday to make a $47.5 million bond interest payment on its 9.5% March 2024 dollar bond. Evergrande's silence on its offshore payment obligations has left global investors wondering if they will have to swallow large losses when a 30-day grace period ends for the last week in Wednesday's coupon payment deadlines. Once the face of China's frenzied building boom, Evergrande has now become the face of a crackdown on developers' debts that has spurred volatility in global markets and left large and small investors sweating their exposure. Evergrande's troubles slammed global stock markets earlier this month. In the weeks since, some global investors have shifted their focus to political wrangling in Washington over the U.S. debt ceiling and a rise in Treasury yields that has pressured stocks. Any negative surprise by Evergrande could give stock market bears more ammunition. Beijing is prodding government-owned firms and state-backed property developers such as China Vanke Company Limited, 00002.se, to purchase some of Evergrande's assets, people with knowledge of the matter told Reuters. Authorities are hoping that asset purchases will ward off or at least mitigate any social unrest that could occur if Evergrande were to suffer a messy collapse, they said, declining to be identified due to the sensitivity of the matter. On Monday, China's central bank vowed to protect consumers exposed to the housing market, without mentioning Evergrande in a statement posted to its website, and injected more cash into the banking system. Those moves have boosted investor sentiment towards Chinese property stocks in the last couple of days, with Evergrande stock rising as much as 15% on Wednesday. United States General Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, fended off perhaps the most personal and direct attacks from lawmakers of his career on Tuesday as Republicans blasted his calls with China and his interviews for books critical of Donald Trump's presidency. Milley, 63, was unshaken as Republicans called for his resignation during an already contentious hearing that was meant to focus on the chaotic United States withdrawal from Afghanistan, but repeatedly swerved into questions regarding the general. When asked, Milley acknowledged talking to Washington Post author Bob Woodward for a book that showcased Milley's role trying to avert a crisis over apparent Chinese fears that Trump might attack Beijing in his final months in office. The book detailed supposedly secret calls with General Li Zuocheng of the People's Liberation Army on October 30, 2020 and again on January 8, and said Milley had promised to warn China first if he were ordered to attack. Milley confirmed the calls but said they were not secret to United States government officials and that he was acting on instructions from some of Trump's top aides to de-escalate tensions. He acknowledged trying to send a message that we are not going to attack you following United States intelligence indicating Beijing feared an attack. Republican Senator Dan Sullivan challenged Milley, insinuating he would be executed for that kind of behavior in China. Milley said the calls were part of his mandate to ensure strategic stability. Trump, who has said Milley should be fired if the accounts were true, issued a statement after the hearing ridiculing the Army general. Senator Angus King, an independent committee member who caucuses with Democrats, praised Milley. "I think he was rendering the country a significant service," King told reporters on a conference call after the hearing. The committee's Democratic chairman, Senator Jack Reed, also told reporters that de-escalating international tensions was part of Milley's job. Milley acknowledged that he also spoke on January 8 with United States House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who, according to the Washington Post, had asked the general what safeguards were in place to prevent an unstable president from launching a nuclear strike. "He's crazy. You know he's crazy," Pelosi told Milley, the newspaper reported, citing a transcript of the call. Milley, in his remarks to Congress, said Pelosi had asked him on January 8 about whether Trump's actions might lead to an accidental nuclear missile launch. He responded by assuring her of safeguards and added, "I am not qualified to determine the mental health of the President of the United States." Milley told the Armed Services Committee, "At no time was I attempting to change or influence the process, usurp authority, or insert myself into the chain of command." President Joe Biden has supported Milley throughout the controversy surrounding the calls, saying he had great confidence in him. But it is not the first time the top United States military officer has been caught in the spotlight. Last year, Milley caused an uproar after accompanying Trump toward a church for a photo opportunity just after authorities cracked down on civil rights protesters. He later said he regretted it, saying the incident created a perception of the military involved in domestic politics. In one exchange on Tuesday, Milley acknowledged also speaking with two other sets of book authors. Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn lashed out at him. "In order to get your name in a book, all you have managed to do is to politicize the United States military, to downgrade our reputation with our allies," Blackburn said. The projectile North Korea fired off its east coast on Tuesday was a newly developed hypersonic missile, state news media KCNA reported on Wednesday, the latest in a series of new weapons tested by the reclusive state. North Korea fired the missile towards the sea off its east coast, South Korea's military said, as Pyongyang called on the United States and South Korea to scrap their double standards on weapons programs to restart diplomatic talks. The development of the weapons system increases North Korea's defense capabilities, KCNA said, describing the hypersonic missile as strategic weapon. Unlike ballistic missiles that fly into outer space before returning on steep trajectories, hypersonic weapons fly towards targets at lower altitudes and can achieve more than 5 times the speed of sound, or about 6,200 km per hour, 3,853 miles per hour. The test could mean the North is joining an accelerating race to deploy the weapon now involving the United States, Russia, and China. North Korea has been steadily developing its weapons systems amid an impasse over talks aimed at dismantling its nuclear and ballistic missile arsenals in return for United States sanctions relief. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un did not inspect the launch, according to the report. It said the missile, called Hwasong-8, performed to its technical targets including the guiding maneuverability and the gliding flight characteristics of the detached hypersonic gliding warhead. Hypersonic weapons are considered the next generation of arms that aim to rob adversaries of reaction time and traditional defeat mechanisms. The United States on Monday said it has tested an air-breathing hypersonic weapon, marking the first successful test of the class of weapon since 2013. In July, Russia had successfully tested a Zircon hypersonic cruise missile, a weapon President Vladimir Putin has touted as part of a new generation of missile systems without equal in the world. Chang Yongkan, a missile specialist at the Korea Aerospace University, said the North's test of the hypersonic gliding vehicle, HGV, was likely a failure given the flight was clocked at Mach 2.5, citing reported assessment by South Korean military intelligence. The North's HGV technology is not comparable to those of the U.S., Russia or China and for now seems to aim for short range that can target South Korea or Japan, Chang said. North Korea last week said it was willing to consider another summit with South if mutual respect between the neighbors can be assured, following South Korean President Moon Jae-in's call for a declaration to formally end the 1950 to 1953 Korean War. The denuclearization negotiations, initiated between former United States President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in 2018, have stalled since 2019. The two Koreas both test-fired ballistic missiles on Sept 15, part of an arms race in which both nations have developed increasingly sophisticated weapons while efforts prove fruitless to get talks going on diffusing tensions.